go ahead and introduce us, and we will save the video and, of course, post it for the rewatch because I know it's going to be incredible. Me and Nikki can talk for hours about healing and inner power, but we're going to keep it to like 20-30 minutes for you guys. And like I said, we'll post for the rewatch. My name is Sara Melcher. Welcome to Empower Talks. This is going to be a series all month, probably going into June. The feedback that we're getting is probably going to be a lot longer, but the goal of this is to highlight the empowered people in my life, the people that have influenced my journey and I know influence the community, to bring you guys powerful conversations, tools, tips, all the jazz about personal development and healing. And today I have the honor of highlighting my beautiful friend Nicole Neal, also known as the Soul Shifter and the owner of Healing Hippie Co. This woman is incredible. I'm going to give her a chance to highlight all of the beautiful things that she does and how she impacts the community. And today the topic is how healing unlocks your inner power, and we'll dive more into that. But I want to give Nikki a chance to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor. This is something that I am so passionate about. It literally is like my jam. It's a lifestyle thing for me. So I was a teacher. I was married. I had two children. Well, I have two children. And I just like was in a place where I felt like no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't have like the lifestyle that I wanted. I really just wanted more out of life. And at the time, I didn't really realize how much healing work I actually needed. I always just thought like, oh, I'm a nice person, you know, I'm always trying to do good things for people. And I never really realized how much that blocked me because I didn't really have boundaries. And so moving through, you know, my healing journey has been transformative. It's been life-changing.
Great.
And I feel like, you know, my teaching background and just, you know, being able to really connect with people and seeing themes in the community of like, oh, I see a lot of people experiencing this wound. Like, I really want to help people. And I love to create. So I love to create powerful tools to really, you know, help people transform and to move through their shit, basically, you know what I mean? Anything that is blocking them, because it's
Exactly.
like, I believe people have, you know, the power to self-heal. I believe people have the power to, you know, co-create the life that they want. And so I just am like here to help people, you know, step into that.
Yeah. So you said you didn't realize how much healing you needed. What was something, because we talk about this a lot, what is something that showed up in your life that you were like, wait a minute, like we got some work to do? An example. I know it's been a journey now of years.
Um, I think for me, the biggest thing was like attracting people that were emotionally unavailable. It was like constantly poured into people, but I never really received that reciprocated energy back. And so I'm like, why do I keep attracting this type of person with like a different mask, right? And
Mhm.
so I really had to sit with myself and kind of, you know, say, wow, like, am I really valuing myself? Like, you know, just because, and especially like from a romantic standpoint, it's like just because someone showed interest in me didn't mean that I had to like reciprocate it either. I just think that like I was coming from such a place of like, I want everyone to like me, I want to fit in, that it stifled, you know, my authenticity and like who I really was.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know, moving through my journey, the more that I kind of spoke my truth, the easier it was for me to see, you know, like who was for me and who wasn't,
Yeah.
and who to like take on the journey with me and who I had to, you know, like leave behind. And so just like that repeating pattern, and also like seeing my life not being a reflection of like what I truly wanted. And so I'm like, okay, like, you know, I see other people, you know, like doing what they love and being abundant and, you know, all the things, or like having that true love relationship. And so I was like, what is it within me that is blocking me from having, the things that I truly want? It wasn't coming from like a place of jealousy, but like, if they can have it, so can I. If they can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
And so, I think always being the underdog in my life, and just like, I think it really helps me, like want to inspire other people and want to help other people through, limitations that they've been told, like, you can't do that. It's like, yes, you
Yeah.
can. And you can do it powerfully, and so that's, the message that I really want to share, and kind of just give people my blueprint of when I actually started peeling back the layers. I'm like, wow, like I have a lot of healing work to do.
Mhm.
I've been through so much trauma, and it was just like, I've always moved through it. Like it was always just like, oh, that happened to me, like throw it in the backpack. Like I have stuff to do, I have things to accomplish. And so, being taught to never really deal with things. And so definitely going through, a spiritual awakening or healing, it's like you have to unpack everything. You have to really move through that emotional body and allow yourself to purge. And so, just doing a lot of shadow work, and then wanting to help people, and give people that like toolbox of,
Yeah,
like this is how we move through it, because we're not meant to carry it forever. And so
exactly.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. It's like, it's okay to let this stuff go, and to, transform into the version of myself that I truly see for myself.
Yes, exactly. The work to transform, like this happened to me, but I don't have to stay that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? But let's talk a little bit about the childhood experience, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
work as adults, I know for myself, like being in my 30s, almost 37, like, oh my gosh, um, almost 37.
One more year until
That's
I'm 40. I'm like, what?
let's not even get into that, right?
Yeah.
Um, all these years of experiences, right? And you just mentioned the trauma. Like, how does I want to help people understand how that trauma really affects who we are now in our
Mm,
adulthood,
I would love to talk
and a
about
little
that.
bit about the shadow work. So, like, I know we talk a lot about shadow work, but some people still don't really understand what does that even mean. So,
Mm-hmm.
can we share with the audience like what that looks like? What does it look like to actually go back through those years and figure out what it is I need to heal? And then how do I do that from this point of being, almost 40 years old? How do I even start that journey?
Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that I always talk to my clients about, right, is that our present life is always going to show us, where things are coming up, and like how things need to be healed.
Yeah.
So, when I kind of made that decision for myself of like, I want more out of this life, like I deserve more out of this life, like I work too hard to just be surviving, quote unquote. It was like the universe is like, oh, okay, you ready? And
Right.
so it was almost like my world started crumbling. It was like everything basically in my like reality was taken from me.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was kind of saying to my guides, like, why is this happening to me? Like, I am being obedient. Like, I am following like your direction. I'm listening. Like, I'm trying to show up. Like, why is this happening? And so a big piece for me was like learning to work through those limitations as they were happening. And so it's like, is that really truth? So when things were being taken, or, I had these financial blocks, it was like, okay, well, what are my beliefs around money? What happened in my childhood? And so when I started looking at my childhood, it was like, wow, my childhood was never really safe. Like it was never really stable. I moved around a lot. I didn't like have solid friends because I was always, in a different district, or,
Yeah.
and so I feel like when I was moving through my shadow work, it was, how can you build the home and stability within you? Like when, especially when you don't have it in your physical reality. And so that was, hard to do. But it was like coming up, and then I was looking at myself going, oh, okay, like I am the co-creator of my life. Like I can create the life that I want. And then I started, reprogramming, my mind and the stories that I was telling myself about like what was possible and what wasn't. And I think that that's where the real magic happens, right? It's like when things are really tough in your 3D reality, instead of focusing on like, ooh, this is really tough and I'm feeling it. It's like trying to come from a higher perspective of like, okay, what is this showing me? How are my emotions like fueling me to move through this energy? And then, how can I shift that story that I've been telling myself? How can I move through that? And so that is a lot of what shadow work is like things coming up in your reality, you saying, you know what, I understand like why this is coming up because I've experienced this in my past, but this isn't my present story. And so moving through that in that moment, and then just really moving into, like a daily practice where you're nourishing yourself. Because, when you're the person that is, we always hear like generational curse breaker, but it's like when you are that person, there's not, people around you typically that, really understand what you're doing. And so you get a lot of like feedback of like, what are you crazy? What do you, how are you thinking? And so it can be really discouraging too if you don't have that community or have like a strong sense of self as you're moving through, all of these things that are coming up and saying, you're not good enough. And you're like, wait a minute, am I? you know?
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up because, well, that's part of the reason why we're so close, right? We've been that community for each other
Mm-hmm.
because when you are called to go first, right? A lot of times you feel crazy because you're first and you're creating something different than the rest of your family. Your family's like we're all just trying to live our life. Like, why you gotta be doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff, do different stuff? We survive. Why don't you, you're fine. So I'm so glad you brought that up. The community, guidance, coaches, mentors is so, so important and such a vital part of this journey of growth, of personal development, of spiritual
Mm-hmm.
healing, of the healing journey period. That's why there's retreats. I do events. Nikki does events, and we've done some women things together. So that part is just so crucial because you are going to feel like all of the crap coming up,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, everything has to come up, and that's like a part that I think people struggle with is bringing that awareness to everything and really feeling all of
Mm-hmm.
that, but with the intention, like you said, of reprogramming, right? We're literally recreating things, right? We're
Exactly.
reparenting ourselves, we're creating the life that we want to live, that the way that we really want to feel. Like one thing that I tell myself when things come up, I'm like, wait, what would I rather experience? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's what I used to say and what I used to do, but what do I rather feel, do, and say? How would I rather show up in this room? Or how would I rather communicate? Like, that's one of the ways I've been like narrating it myself as I'm like making this huge transformational shift again in my life. And let's talk about that a little bit. So as you begin to awaken and like really like start to change your life, let's talk about the shifts that happen. Like, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, here we go
Yeah.
again. Oh, here we go again. And it's like every time it's like bigger and
Mm-hmm.
bigger. It's even more tangible changes in your life, right? I think that's what's important for people to understand. Sometimes I think we talk about healing like so lightly, but like seeing the tangible changes in your life, like when you start to really attract opportunity, right? You
Mm-hmm.
start to make more money. You start to, align with healthier partners. You start to have a more positive mindset, or maybe not positive, but yeah, you shift your mindset
Mm-hmm.
like compared to the
You
stuff
have to.
that's you have to because you used to talk crazy to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like those, let's talk a little bit about that. What does that look like as you're like starting to step into your power and like get to know yourself and you're recreating your life? What has that journey been like for you as you continue to climb and grow?
I think the thing that helped me the most was really looking at myself and like giving myself grace. I am like the most compassionate and like empathetic person when it comes to other people. And so when it comes to myself, I was always like my worst critic. And so really like looking at myself and like seeing my inner child of like what little Nikki looked like at, 4 or 5 years old. And it's like, how do I want to speak to her? How do I want to show up in the world for her? And so that was a big piece for me. And I think that really like understanding that healing is not linear, right? It's like sometimes we go through things and we're like, oh, I healed that. And then you come back around and it's like, oh, wow, there's like another level to it or another layer to it. And now you're healing, the same thing, but now in a different way. And so I think that that's important to understand too, is just like, we're all human, right? Like we all make mistakes. And the more that I think we can show up and be vulnerable and be like, hey, this is me and this is what I struggle with and this is how I move through it. And I just think that it's so beautiful because like, especially with social media, it's like everyone is showing like the best pieces of their life or what they think, the world wants to see. And I feel like, people just want to feel connected and relatable to people like, oh, wow, I never would have imagined that, she's been through that or she's gone through that. And now I actually like her a little bit more because
Yeah.
I understand like she's not Miss Perfect and
Yep.
and so I think like showing up and just being more vulnerable too, and just like allowing yourself to make mistakes and knowing that like there is no perfect. And I think that's been very helpful for me too, is just like, understanding like, okay, you are learning, you are like, you talked about like, I am the first one. So there is no clear path of like, hey, this is a path to go. It's like I'm forging a path by
Yeah.
like stumping the weeds down. And so it's like sometimes,
Absolutely.
we're learning as we're going. And so I think that has been the biggest thing. And that whenever there is like outside chaos or distraction, always reminding myself and like coming back home to like,
Mm.
you are the vibration, like you are the vibe. And
Yeah.
so like just always bringing it back to self and like, okay,
Mm.
if life is lifing, like focus on you because you are going to attract everything,
Yeah.
and just like really reminding myself of that and just coming back home all the time, I think is like super important when you're healing.
Yeah.
And just like reminding yourself kind of like why you're doing this, like why is this work important to you?
Yes.
Um, and I feel like, being a mother, that was the biggest thing, when I first started my journey. I had read somewhere like, whatever we don't heal gets passed on to our children. And I was just like, oh no, like I don't want my children to have to experience anything that I've been through. So let me, own my shit. Like, let me take accountability. Let me dive in. And I always got excited about shadow work too, because I always like knew that that's where your greatest gifts lie. So it
Mhm.
was always like fun too, of like, ooh, like, let me see what I can do. Like, let me
Mhm.
dive in and see, what kind of gifts I do have.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a fun part too, like of shadow
Yeah.
work of like, all right, like, let me dive in. Like, let me see.
Mhm.
And I always joke around, with clients about like, oh, like I've always wanted to teleport. So like maybe if I do enough work, like I can just start, and like,
Yeah.
it's a joke, but
What
like,
else?
is it?
What else can I do?
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh man, so many good points. The point of being a parent and healing
Mhm.
is another thing that I'm so glad you brought up. It's actually been a driving force for my healing journey as well. Because I was a young mother. My kids are 13 and almost, oh my God, 16, almost 17. It's crazy. And that was like one of the biggest things for me is healing so that I could be a better mother for them. Because I
Mhm.
always say my kids survived me. Like I was a young
Mhm.
mother, had no idea what I was doing, no direction. Um, yeah, at that point, no future, and I've transformed my life. Of course, thank God. I'm so grateful for what I have now. But I always say my kids survived me, and it was a huge driving force for me to heal, so that I could be a better mother for them. And like you said,
Mhm.
create something new for them because oh Lord, like I did not want them to experience what I experienced as a child. And they did experience some things, of course, some trauma, some pain, some experiences, but like now they see the change within me. They see
Mhm.
my reactions. They see the change in the way I communicate with them and the way I listen to them and I look at them and I ask them questions. They don't like it. I'm
Mhm.
like, feel like, are you okay? Like, do you need any support? And they can't stand it because they're teenage boys. Like, hello, they're in high school. They're like, can you stop being weird? But it really does change the way you parent.
Mhm.
And I, if nothing else, do it for the generations to come,
Mhm.
because oh Lord, our generation needs help. Like we need
For
we need help as a whole. We need help as a whole, not just as a spiritual mentor, but I'm not saying that as a spiritual mentor, but as a whole. Something else you said. Oh, you brought up the gifts. So
real.
how,
Mhm.
as we start, we have like 8 more minutes. As we move through this part, how did healing help you really step into using your gifts and being on social media, starting to be at events? I remember I called Nikki and I was like, Nikki, I want you to open my event, my personal development event, with a meditation. And you were like, okay, but I never did that before, but okay. And then she did it and the whole room was blown away. You know what I mean? But that was an opportunity for you to really like step in and own your gift and blow the world away, right? So I want to talk a little bit about to the listeners and what does it look like to get to that point where you're like, this is scary, but I know this is my
Mhm.
purpose. And I'm going to do it because it is divine. It's a divine gift and I kind of have to. So how did that feel for you? What did that look like for you?
I feel like for a long time, I really didn't see my gifts. Like I just thought I was kind of like ordinary, like everybody else. I'm like, oh, everybody can do this because I understand that like everybody does have this gift.
Yeah.
So I think that when I first started, my self-love journey and really started to like use my discernment about like who I was entertaining and who I was allowing in my energy space, it turned out to like become very self-isolating.
Mm,
And this is where I really started to like tune into like what my energy feels like. And I think that, from a very young age, my throat chakra was probably one of my areas where it was attacked. It was really like
mm,
my feelings weren't validated. It was like I was never heard. If I tried to speak up for myself, it was like, don't do that,
yeah.
And so I feel like I learned, from a very young age to like be quiet. And so when I started, you know, trying to, for a couple of years now, my guides have been telling me, like, stop working one on one with clients. You need to be out and about more, like working with the collective. And I'm like, my biggest fear is public speaking. Like, what do you mean you want me to go out and speak in public,
That's why you're being
And you
called to
bringing
do
up that
it.
event was the perfect example. I'm like, this isn't something I do. Like, I'm not good at public speaking. And then I literally had people after the event like, I thought that's exactly what you did. Like, I thought that was your niche. And I was like, no,
Yeah,
this was
yeah,
my first time. Um, and so when I actually started my healing journey, one of the things that I love to really connect with of is my birth chart. And so your Chiron in your birth chart is really like your wounded healer, what you spend like your lifetime kind of working through.
yeah.
And mine is in Gemini. So my big emotional block or my that I'm working through is really understanding that I'm actually not stupid. My ideas are not stupid, but I actually just think in a very unique way. And my gifts are very important. And I need to share my voice and the way that I think with the world. And so moving through, that energy of like really understanding like, oh, this is what I've kind of been shown, this is what I've been taught. But the more that I step into using my voice, it's like not only do I feel good, but I'm getting great feedback. And it's like doing things scared, like knowing, okay, this is a little scary, but I'm going to say yes and I'm just going to show up. And then stepping into that. And it's like the more that you do, it's like for me, it was more about service. It was like, okay, I am scared shitless, but I'm going to say yes because like I know my community needs me. I know the collective needs me. And how selfish like is it for me to like gatekeep what my knowledge and what I know and what I've been through to help people? And so like that always really pushed me. That was like my motivation of like, get out of your fears. Like the world needs you,
I'm just
and so that pushed me.
yeah.
And then receiving that feedback, I was kind of like, oh, I actually think this is one of my gifts. Like, I think that this is where I am supposed to step up. And I feel like opportunities coming to you of speaking engagements or just things like that, it's like, oh, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I am right. And so I'm always using like the universe and what's going on as signs, as confirmation, as breadcrumbs. And so I'm just, always following that and of like, okay, I'll do what I'm being told. Like, you guide me where I need to go.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I also believe that validation after you do something really scary, it's
Mm,
an ego boost, right? It's an ego boost, but it pushes you. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, God, that's why you've been calling me to do
mhm,
this. Like
mhm.
it's connected to a higher perfect purpose. It's connected to service and serving the collective as a whole. And that's something we've always like wanted to do as when we show up to these events. Like it's always to we want the room to experience the healing, the
Mhm.
transformation, the higher vibration, right? The shift in energy. Like that's always the goal. So I'm so grateful that you were always a part of the things that those events, because it really did it really did shift the room and you really did blow them away.
Well, thank
But
you.
it's like
As
it
did
really
you.
I love you so much. But like for the listeners, like really hold on to that yes, you're going to feel the fear. Like we're never going to minimize that, right? Especially if
Mhm,
it's done all this healing, right? You're a wounded child that started to do all this healing, and now you're starting to feel like this empowered person, and you're getting glimmers and cues of like, this is your purpose. You should go do this. You're getting a call or a nudge, whatever you want to call it. You're still going to feel that resistance, right? You're going to feel
mhm,
the resistance. You're going to hear yourself trying to protect yourself. Your ego's going to be like, no, 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 wait, we're safe here. Don't do that. But when
mhm,
you actually push through that resistance and take action, and you blow the world away with your gifts, with that new product, with that course, with that speaking engagement, with that meditation, whatever it is, that journal that you launch, that's like where you're going to really feel that power, right? That inner power that we're talking
mhm.
about. That solar plexus, right? We
Yes.
didn't even get to dive into chakras, right? But the solar plexus, right? The symbol is fire. So we always, that fire within you, right? That inner power just starts to explode, and you feel like you finally aligned, right?
Mhm.
Aligns with your bigger purpose, and that's where that validation comes from, and that amazing feeling comes from, right?
I think that
So
that's, I don't want to
no,
cut you off, but I think
go
that
ahead.
that's a great point that when you were talking about like, how does someone know that they're moving in the right direction? That is
Mm,
how you know, because your soul, it starts to like light up, and
yes.
that's how you can really, identify, okay, this, might be something new. I might be something unfamiliar, but I know it feels really good. And so I'm going to like play around in here and kind of see what I can do here, what I can create. And so I think that that's a huge piece of like learning how to trust yourself and really just like tuning into your body. Because I feel like, as humans, we're so busy. And the biggest thing with healing, right, is like slowing down, is giving yourself the grace, the time to go within. It's like when you're feeling things, go within and feel those emotions. Like, what are your emotions telling you?
Yep.
Not, put them in your backpack and move on because tomorrow's coming. It's like, and I
Yeah.
think that that's where the like real magic works, is, is when we're slowing down, is when we're tuning in and we're starting to ask those questions, right? Of like, okay, what do I want for myself? What feels good? Where am I unhappy? How can I shift that? And I think that, the two biggest things that really helped me is learning how to be present and stay in the present moment. I'm like, I don't want to be in the past
Yeah.
anymore because I am not the past person of, the version I am is not the past. And I don't want to be in the future either because I don't want to feel anxious. Like, I just want to be present and surrender. And then the other part was becoming the observer, like looking at my life like it's a movie, like feeling through things but then pulling back and, okay, what is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me?
Yeah.
How am I limiting myself? How am I blocking myself? And I think that that's how, we really do the work, right, is like tuning in.
Wow. That was fire. I hope y'all catch that at the end. That reflection because I mean, one of my favorite things to tell people and like clients, anyone that I'm talking to is like, can you be honest with yourself,
Mhm.
right? Because that's what it really takes to be really honest and keep yourself accountable when you're doing that reflection. So that's like, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's really powerful. Um, okay, so I know we could go on and on and on because we love this is our show,
Right.
guys. Sorry.
Amazing.
But I want to be able to leave them, the audience, the listeners, with 2 tips or tools that you can offer them, Nikki, that you think like would help someone who's maybe just starting their journey, or maybe they've been on this journey, but they're kind of like, I feel kind of stagnant. What are some things that you recommend for them to either start or continue, like getting through that slump in their journey, maybe?
So I think one thing that I would say is be careful what you're consuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're constantly consuming, and I don't just mean food, but I mean, what you're watching, what you're listening to. A big thing for me was, starting every day with positive affirmations, and so I talked a little bit in the beginning about making tools because I use them. These are practices that like I've used for myself, and I'm like, oh, this is powerful, like people need this. So I have my Talk That Talk Sis quantum jump affirmation book that I really wanted to create for the divine feminine to step into their power and to realize just how powerful you are. Like, you birth things. Come
Yes,
on. Like, how much more
come on,
powerful can
that
you
feminine
be? Like,
power. Woo.
and another great resource is I am on Sunday hosting a grounding your nervous system workshop. So really trying to teach people, what do triggers mean, how to bring that awareness in, like what to do when you are triggered, how to self-regulate, and then like how to go within and do the work. So like going asking yourself those questions, why those triggers are coming up, what is it trying to show you, and helping people move through it. Because I really think that, we all have the power to self-heal, and I want to give people as many tools, as I can, to really help, just shift this world that we live in, you know what I mean, of bringing more peace and harmony into this world.
Yeah. Okay. Whew, absolutely. You're so powerful. You are so amazing.
Thank
I'm so
you.
grateful you're able to do this.
Me
Like
too.
I said, everyone, I will be posting this live and I will tag Nikki. Make sure that you're following her, the Soul Shifter in the Healing Hippico. I'll tag her in the caption there. This is Empower Talks with Sara Melcher and Nicole Neal. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you caught the nuggets on healing, how healing can help you unlock your inner power. Thank you, Nikki, so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
guys for listening. I love y'all.
Thank
Now I'm going
you.
to attempt to save the video. So, bye. Okay, Nikki.
Technology.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you.
Bye. Let's see how I do this. All right, you guys bear with me as I try to save this. Oh, here we go.